Hello, my name is Mr. Vikram Dhar. I am an ENT consultant and I'm based here in East Kent. Tinnitus is a perception by the patient of a noise in the head or the ear. There are two types, subjective and objective tinnitus. Subjective tinnitus is where the patient themselves can hear the tinnitus, but no one else can. And objective tinnitus is where other people can hear it as well as the patient themselves. The question with regard to when one should see the doctor, if the tinnitus is on one side or associated with other symptoms, such as vertigo or sudden hearing loss, then you should see your doctor. If the tinnitus is on both sides or in your head and is persistent and intrusive, that's another reason to go and see your doctor. So many people ask me, what causes tinnitus? And in the vast majority of cases, it's nerve hearing loss. The cochlea, which is the organ of hearing, is in effect a nerve that's all tied up nice and tightly. And the little hair cells, often as we get older or for other reasons, will get damaged. And when that hearing loss occurs, that in itself is the initiating factor for the tinnitus. But it's actually this part of our brain that senses the noise, called the auditory cortex, which drives the tinnitus, in that it's trying its best to hear what it can't hear no more. And in a sense, that brings about the noise. So tinnitus certainly can improve, and certainly we should have expectations of it to go away. But what we shouldn't do is get caught in the checking trap, as I call it. Because one can easily think, is it there? Yes, it is. That feels quite negative. And then a very important deep part of our brain called the amygdala hippocampus will draw our attention to the tinnitus and make things worse. Of course, the brain has many millions of inputs every second of the day, but we don't pay attention to most of it. And unfortunately, the brain tends to attend to and pay attention to things it's worried or concerned about. So we have to allow it to drift away. And when we check on it, yeah, it may be there, but we have to leave that alone. But certainly our expectation in time is the tinnitus won't always be there. In fact, we know that about 10% of the population at any one time will be suffering from some degree of tinnitus. So understandably, tinnitus can be intrusive, and that's why they come, people like yourself might want to come and see me. And of course, people want the magic blue pill that will make everything better, or the operation. And in the vast majority of cases, there is no medical or surgical treatment. The most important thing, the number one thing, is to get a proper diagnosis. Make sure there's nothing rare going on, and make sure there's not a reversible cause, for example, ongoing ear infection that may be completely treatable and will help. And the other very important factor is to get your hearing checked, because it's a bit like an X-ray to a bone doctor. We need to know what's going on in the ears, and more often than not, we'll find that there is a hearing deficit. And we need to look at that hearing deficit, see if it's on one side or not, and see whether or not a hearing aid, for example, might be of value. Because if the cochlea, it can't hear properly, and a hearing aid amplifies the frequencies it can't hear properly, it's quite possible that the auditory cortex doesn't need to try so hard and the tinnitus fades into the background. So often tinnitus is born out of hearing loss, and most hearing loss is due to getting older, unfortunately, and that can't be prevented, of course. But it's very important that as we get older or throughout our life, we pay very close attention to protecting our ears to loud noises, and particularly loud sustained noises, because we know that loud noises, and particularly loud sustained noises, can damage those vital cochlear hair cells. And once we have permanent hearing loss, we're more susceptible to tinnitus. So if you were to ask me, what can I do to reduce the chances of me getting tinnitus, then I would say certainly wear good ear protection with loud noises. I think the other factor is to not be too hard on yourself. Life is stressful and busy and hectic, and we need to take things easy and be mindful and pay attention to our mental health. because tinnitus is often born out of stress and worry also.